Even though we always hope a film's protagonist makes it to the end, that's not always the case, especially when it comes to horror. After being tormented relentlessly by a masked serial killer, aliens, or the forces of hell, there are heroes who can't see any chance of surviving and so decide to throw in the towel. Whether it's because they find themselves in a hapless situation, wish to sacrifice themselves to save another, or simply lose the will to live, some people just give up. However, there are occasions where a character manages to survive even after they said their goodbyes and willingly marched into the jaws of death. It just goes to show that even when someone is fully prepared to meet their maker, fate can have other plans. And so with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 9 horror movie victims who gave up and survived. Number 9. Bol in his house. In his house, Bol and Rial are forced to flee South Sudan when a civil war breaks out. After they receive accommodation in Britain, the pair attempt to adjust to their new life. But after a spectre called an Apeth invades their home, Bol and Rial are forced to face the sins of their past. Throughout the story, it's heavily implied the pair are having relationship problems because their daughter died while escaping South Sudan. Through a flashback, we discover the reality is far worse. While Bol was in Sudan, he learned that the buses set to leave the country were only letting on people with children. Out of desperation, Bol snatched a girl and passed her off as his own to guarantee his place on the bus. Even though Rial saw what Bol did, she said nothing. After Bol and Rial acknowledge their misdeeds, the Apeth informs them that it will resurrect the girl if Bol repays the debt. Wanting to atone, Bol allows the creature to burrow into his body, causing him to experience unimaginable pain. Just as the Apeth is about to kill Bol, Rial cuts its throat, nullifying the deal. In the final scene, we see Bol and Rial have accepted the evil they committed and are trying their best to move on. Number 8. Alex in Final Destination. In Final Destination, Alex has a premonition that the plane he's boarded is about to explode. Alex starts having a meltdown which causes him and 6 others to be removed from the plane moments before it blows up. Because these 7 passengers cheated death, the Grim Reaper must kill them off to restore balance. When Alex warns his peers that death is coming for them, they ignore him, which results in their demise. When he learns Death is preparing to kill his friend Clear, Alex heads to her house to save her. As he arrives at her driveway, Alex notices Clear is trapped in her car, dangerously close to 2 electrical wires and a gasoline tank. Refusing to let another person die, Alex grabs the 2 cables, allowing Clear to flee, just before the car goes kaboom, seemingly killing him. However, the next scene cuts to a few months later, with Alex and Clear still very much alive. I mean, they popped their clogs in the sequel, but at least they lived through that movie. Number 7. Chris in Get Out. Get Out follows a young African-American, Chris, who's about to meet the family of his white girlfriend, Rose Armitage. At first, he's worried his skin colour may cause a bit of friction, but upon meeting them, he realises that's the least of his problems. To his horror, Chris discovers the Armitages are transplanting their friends' brains into young people's bodies to prolong their lives. Worse still, Chris is to be the Armitages' latest victim. Just before the surgical procedure, Chris breaks free, burns down the estate and kills all the Armitages, save for Rose. After Rose is shot, Chris strides towards her, ready to kill her. But after a police car pulls up, it looks like Chris is screwed. Fortunately, the officer is revealed to be Chris's friend Rod, who knew Rose's family was up to no good. After breathing a sigh of relief, Chris and Rod drive to safety, leaving Rose to bleed out on the road. Number 6. Father Caris in The Exorcist. During the Exorcist's climax, Father Caris and Father Merrin do all they can to expel the demon Pazuzu from Reagan's body. When Caris realizes the exorcism isn't working, he lashes out at Pazuzu, ordering the demonic entity to possess him instead. After it enters Caris's body, he reasons that he can send Pazuzu back to hell if he takes his own life while it's inside him. Although the hellish creature attempts to use Caris's body to murder Reagan, he wrangles control over himself for long enough to jump out of the window, slamming into the staircase below. Caris's friend, Father Dyer, gives him the last rites just as he draws his final breath. As horrible as it was to watch Caris bleed out on the steps, you can take some solace knowing he freed Reagan from her torment and defeated Pazuzu once and for all. Number 5. Elliot, Elma and Jesse in The Happening. In The Happening, mathematician Elliot discovers that plants in his area have begun producing spores, inciting any human nearby to take their own life. After Elliot hears people in his town have been infected, Elliot encourages his wife Alma and his friend's daughter Jessie to relocate to a state unaffected by the outbreak. Surmising that the plants only kill people in large groups, Elliot reasons that Elma, Jesse and himself should be fine so long as they don't go near anyone else. While hiding out in a cabin, Elliot noticed the plants are starting to infect people individually. In that moment, Elliot believes he's simply delaying the inevitable, since the slightest contact with a tree, airborne seed or a blade of grass will result in his death. Left with no choice, Elliot, Elma and Jesse march out of the cabin, accepting their demise. To their surprise, nothing happens, implying the plants have ceased their attack upon humanity. It's possible Elliot's group was spared because the plants didn't see them as a threat. However, it's more likely they survived because the director didn't know how else to end the movie. Number 4. Grey Trace in Upgrade. In Upgrade, Grey and his wife are driving home when their car crashes. 4 men suddenly appear and kill Grey's wife and shoot him in the spine, leaving him crippled. Luckily, Grey is fitted with a cybernetic implant called STEM, which gives him mobility, super strength and heightened reflexes. With this newfound power, he vows to kill the men who murdered his wife. But in the final scene, Grey discovers his wife's death and his paralysis were orchestrated by STEM. The sneaky implant planned out everything so it could be free from its prison and finally experience the world from a human's perspective. Because Detective Cortez discovered STEM's plan, the implant compels Grey to eliminate her. Knowing the AI will stop at nothing to get what it wants, Grey shoots himself in the head, seemingly killing them both. Suddenly, Grey awakens in a hospital, only to learn everything after the car crash was a dream. Grey embraces his wife lovingly and they all live happily ever after. At least that's what you think is going to happen. The scene suddenly cuts to the previous shot, showing Grey is holding Cortez at gunpoint. Through Grey's body, STEM explains that his host has mentally snapped, allowing the implant to take over. After shooting Cortez dead, STEM walks away victorious. Even though our hero is still alive, he has trapped himself in a fantasy world, oblivious of the evil his body will continue to commit. Number 3. Shaun and Liz in Shaun of the Dead. At the end of Shaun of the Dead, our titular hero and his friends barricade themselves in their local pub after the town is swamped with zombies. When the undead horde break in, Shaun, his girlfriend Liz, and his housemate Ed are forced to hide inside the basement. With no apparent way to escape, the trio realise the zombies will inevitably find them. Since being ripped apart and eaten isn't an ideal way to go, the group agree to a suicide pact. Since they only have 2 bullets left in their pistol, Shaun and Liz decide to shoot themselves, while Ed says he doesn't mind being eaten. Before they blow their brains out, Shaun and Liz feel it's fitting to have one last cigarette, but as they flick on the lighter, the light allows Liz to see a keg lift behind Shaun. After the pair stand on the lift, Ed activates a switch, taking Shaun and Liz to an area outside, away from the zombies. Weirdly, Liz and Shaun never would have seen the lift if they didn't decide to have a ciggy at the last minute. Number 2. Bud Brigman in the Abyss. In the Abyss, Bud Brigman leads a SEAL team, including his ex-wife Lindsay, to locate a lost nuclear submarine. But during their mission, Bud's team come into contact with a water-controlling NTI, non-terrestrial intelligence, which is what caused the submarine to get lost in the first place. When the SEAL team discover the sub's nukes are set to detonate, Bud puts on a diver's suit, makes his way towards the vessel and dismantles it. When Lindsay realizes Bud has barely any oxygen left, she urges him to rush back. Instead of panicking, Bud knew he wouldn't have enough air to make his way back, telling Lindsay his mission was a one-way ticket. After saying goodbye, Bud turns off his communicator and waits for his oxygen tank to deplete. Suddenly, the NTI that the SEAL team met earlier appears and brings Bud to a submerged city where he's able to breathe. The NTI explains that his species had grown so tired of humanity's wars, they were preparing to drown the whole world. But upon noticing Bud was willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good, the NTIs changed their mind. Ironically, Bud's attempts to take his own life indirectly saved all of mankind. Number 1. David in the Mist. In this Stephen King adaptation, David and his family are going about their day when a mist sweeps across the town and spills out a horde of interdimensional monsters. At first, David tries to hold out at a nearby supermarket. As the creatures cause further destruction to the area, David realizes his only means of survival is to escape the town. David takes 4 survivors, including his son Billy, in his car and drives away as a creature storms towards them. Just as it looks like David is going to make it, his vehicle runs out of gas. Favoring a quick death, the group agree to take their own lives. Using the 4 remaining bullets in his gun, David shoots everyone in the car save for himself. After breaking down in tears, he gets out of the car, allowing the beast to kill him. To his horror, David sees the US Army have arrived and killed off the creatures. Not only that, David notices many people from the supermarket are alive, meaning he would have been fine if he'd stayed put. Acknowledging that he just killed 4 innocent people for no reason, including his 8-year-old child, David falls to his knees and weeps to the heavens.